The next few days weren't easy. There was an invisible tension that clung to the house, like a storm cloud hanging low in the sky, just waiting to burst. I kept telling myself it would get better, that we'd find our rhythm, but every time I looked at her, I saw the ghost of the woman I once loved, and it was hard to ignore the weight of everything we'd been through. Jamie was adjusting, in his own way. He seemed to be taking it better than I expected, but I noticed the way he watched us sometimes, his eyes flickering from me to her, like he was trying to read between the lines of what was happening. We didn't talk about it directly, but I could feel the distance growing, like something was missing in the air. A part of our family that had been lost somewhere along the way. One evening, after dinner, I found myself alone with her in the kitchen. The dishes were stacked in the sink, the quiet buzz of the overhead light the only sound. Jamie had gone to his room, and for the first time in days, we were alone. "You've been quiet," I said, my back to her as I wiped down the counter, trying to avoid the tension that hung in the air like a thick fog. "I'm just tired," she replied, but there was something in her voice that didn't sound like tiredness. It sounded like guilt. Or maybe regret. "Are you?" I turned around, meeting her gaze. She was standing near the stove, her hands nervously fiddling with the edge of her shirt. The same way she used to when she was hiding something from me. I felt a pang in my chest. Hadn't we both been hiding things for years? "Look," she began, her voice quieter now, almost vulnerable, "I know this is a lot for you. I never meant for it to get to this point. I didn't want to burden you." I could hear the cracks in her voice. She was still the woman I knew, the one who tried so hard to keep everything together, even when she was falling apart inside. But this time, it wasn't just her who was struggling. "I didn't want you to come here," I said, my words harsher than I intended. "I didn't want things to be like this. You left, remember? You made that choice. And now you're back asking for help, like nothing happened." Her face stiffened, the mask slipping back into place. "I didn't ask for this either, Chris. I didn't want to lose everything. But I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm just asking for a place to stay until I can get back on my feet." I saw the hurt in her eyes. The same hurt I had seen too many times before, and it triggered something deep inside me. She was right, she didn't ask for this. But neither had I. "You don't get to just show up after everything that happened and expect everything to go back to normal," I snapped, my voice rising without warning. "I'm not the same person I was when you left, and neither are you. This isn't what I wanted for my life, for Jamie's life." There was a long pause. The silence between us felt suffocating, like we were both holding our breath, waiting for something to break. "I never wanted to hurt you, Chris," she said, her voice trembling now. "You think I didn't think about how everything turned out? I wake up every day wishing I could go back. Wishing I had made different choices. I don't need you to wish, I need you to act," I shot back, the anger spilling out of me before I could stop it. I didn't even recognize my own voice. It was like all the frustration and confusion of the past few years had finally found a way to surface. "You don't get to just walk back into our lives and make everything okay. I've been trying to build something new here. Something that doesn't include you." Her face faltered for a second, the words cutting deeper than I expected. But then she squared her shoulders and took a step toward me, her eyes burning with something fierce. "You think I don't know that? You think I don't know how hard you've worked to move on? How hard it's been for both of us?" Her voice cracked, and I saw a tear slip down her cheek, the vulnerability I had been avoiding for so long now fully exposed. "But I had nowhere else to go, Chris. Do you think this is easy for me? Do you think I wanted to come crawling back to you like this?" I opened my mouth to say something, but the words stuck in my throat. We were both standing there now, so close that I could feel the heat of her body, the same warmth I had once felt when we were together. It had been so long since I had seen her like this, broken, raw, and so painfully real. I felt my anger dissolve, replaced by a familiar ache in my chest. "I didn't want to come back," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "But I didn't know where else to turn. And I know I hurt you, Chris. I know I ruined everything. But I swear to you, I didn't mean for it to be this way. There was a moment of silence. A heavy pause where neither of us knew what to say next. The space between us felt charged, like a storm waiting to break. And then, without thinking, I reached out to touch her arm. The contact was electric, warm, intimate, a reminder of everything we had once shared. Her eyes met mine, and for a moment, we just stood there, neither of us moving, both of us caught between the past and the present. I saw the pain in her eyes, the same regret I felt, the same longing that had never truly gone away. You don't get to just come back into my life like this, I repeated, my voice softer now, but the words still heavy. You broke us, Ella. You can't just fix that with a few apologies. She swallowed hard, her face tense. I know. But I need you to know, I never stopped loving you. I never stopped caring about you. I just didn't know how to fix everything we broke. I felt my heart race at her words, and before I could stop myself, I pulled her into a hug. It wasn't a romantic gesture, it wasn't even a conscious choice. It was instinct. The familiarity of her body, the warmth of her embrace, the comfort we used to find in each other's arms, it was all still there. For a moment, I let myself sink into it. I let myself remember what it felt like to be loved by her, to be wanted. But then, just as quickly, I pulled away, the reality of our situation crashing back in. We can't go back, I said, my voice thick with emotion. I know, she whispered, her hand resting lightly on my arm, as if she didn't want to let go. But maybe we can figure out how to move forward. And for the first time in years, I didn't have an answer.